out of the way in order to make this possible. So there's a lot of German ancestry there.
There was sensitivity, though, am I right in saying, just about the name?
Very much so. George V was quite clever, I think, and advised by his Private Secretary, Lord Stamfordham, and was worried at the attacks that were being made on his family, many of whom had German titles, even though they were completely and totally on the side of Britain. And so in 1917, he got a number of them to drop their German titles, and he himself assumed. It's interesting, though, if I may be serious a moment about this state visit, is of course the early state visits were by nature conciliatory. This one's very much looking to the future. I mean, it's looking to try to get better terms for the European Union. It's not the Queen doing that, but the fact that David Cameron is flying over especially for the state banquet tonight, that's pretty unusual. And obviously he will have talks with Angela Merkel, which will be very important. But the Queen will create a wonderful, exciting atmosphere in which the politicians can then move forward in a happy frame of mind, we hope.
Underlying Britain's central role in the history of Europe.
Absolutely.
Hugo Vickers, the royal historian. This is News Hour from the BBC. And coming up later in the programme, our Middle East editor Jeremy Byrne gains rare access to the conflict inside Yemen.
People here are getting united in the way the British did when they were bombed.
Yes, of course. I am sure that they are united. You see? And this is the answer of Saudis. You have to take care, yeah. You see? These are the rockets every day. They don't care about the children. They don't care about the women, the hospitals, everything.
More from the front line in Yemen in about 20 minutes' time. Headlines this hour: the man convicted of the Boston Marathon bombing has apologised for the attack before being formally sentenced to death. And President Obama has announced changes to his country's hostage policy in response to criticism from the families of kidnapped Americans. This is News Hour from the BBC World Service with me, Tim Franks. Now to our special week of China coverage, 10 years in Whitehorse Village. For the past decade, our China editor, Carrie Gracie, has followed the fortunes of one rural community being transformed into a city, a microcosm of the astonishing urbanisation across the country. At the grassroots level, the task of managing China's turbulent change creates enormous pressures on the individuals involved. Today, Carrie brings you the story of the Communist Party secretary.
We'll check the latest breaking news with our minute-by-minute news feed. If you want to take the news with you, we offer you downloadable podcasts to listen at your convenience, or archive programming, so you can catch up on the programs you've missed. Or you can access bbc.com/news on your mobile phone. bbc.com/news also lets you give feedback direct to our program teams. All this content, coverage and opportunity makes the BBC the world leader in news coverage online. bbc.com/news.
Coming up on News Hour in the next 30 minutes, the European Union shows itself remarkably disunited over dealing with migrants. Our Middle East editor is caught in the conflict in Yemen. And Shakespeare, not funny, he must be choking. This is the BBC World Service. I'm Tim Franks, and you're listening to News Hour. First, let's get a summary of the latest news.
BBC News with David Austin. The man convicted of the bomb attack on the Boston Marathon has apologized to the victims. Djokhar Tsarnaev, the 21-year-old ethnic Chechen, was speaking in court before he was formally sentenced to death. He said he'd listened to everyone who spoke on the witness stand and noted the strength, patience and dignity of the survivors. President Obama has announced changes in the United States policy towards hostage-taking. The president made clear that families paying ransom for their captured relatives would not face prosecution. Eurozone finance ministers in Brussels have wrapped up their latest deliberations about the Greek debt crisis with no solution in sight yet. The German finance minister said not much had changed since Monday, when the ministers got a first look at the most recent Greek proposals. One of the top coaches in athletics, Alberto Salazar, has issued a lengthy and detailed rebuttal of doping allegations saying he would never permit doping. He said he had not and would not condone any athlete he trained using a banned substance. The French Parliament has adopted a controversial surveillance law, despite an outcry over revelations that the United States had been spying on President Hollande and his two predecessors. The law will allow the French intelligence services to bug suspects' homes and track their cars without prior authorization from a judge. Alabama has become the latest U.S. state to ban the Confederate battle flag from official buildings because of its racist connotations. The decision comes in response to the killing of 9 black people in a church in Charleston a week ago. The daughter of the late singer Whitney Houston has been moved to hospice care after months of treatment in hospital. Bobby Christina Brown, who's 22, was found unresponsive in a bathtub in her home in Atlanta in January. Her mother died in 2012 after a similar incident. Those are the latest stories from BBC News.
Coming up next here on NewsHour, Europe struggles over migrants. First, our daily look at business news, and we're up at the high end of finance today, in particular Queen Elizabeth's finances. Figures out today show that the Queen's property empire has nearly doubled in value over the last decade, and last year contributed £285 million in profits to the British government. It's about 450 million US dollars. The Crown Estate owns great swathes of land and various posh addresses. It hands all its profits to the British government, and about 15% of those profits are then passed on to the Queen. Simon Jack spoke to Alison Nimmo, who's chief executive of the Crown Estate. He asked her first if it was true that the Queen actually owns the seabed around the UK coast.
We have this incredibly diverse portfolio. Half the coastline, our favourite beaches, the seabed out to 12 miles, where we've got a fantastic renewable energy business, offshore wind farms, agriculture, aquaculture, but as you say, the core of the portfolio is here in London.
And just tell me, who actually owns this legally?
Legally, it's owned by the Queen, but there's a lot of interesting history to this. I mean, we're an independent commercial business, and if you go back to before 1760, the Queen owned, or the monarch owned the Crown Estate, and all the revenues went to the monarch. And then George III, back in 1760, did this deal with Parliament where, in return for the civil list, he gave up those revenues. So these days, as you say, all the profits we generate from the Crown Estate go back to Treasury.
But the Queen takes a little slice of that. What are your best performing assets? I mean, how's the business doing?